To resign or not to resign, some ministers seem to be foot-dragging on their next line of action. As the president's ultimatum counts down, we'll be telling you who else may have taken the plunge and internal workings. The opposition People's Democratic Party is first to reveal its game plan for the primaries as it throws the contest open to all regions. Contrary to agitations within and outside the party, how does the PDP plan to win this one? Hello and welcome to the nation's capital, Abuja. This is Politics Today, live on Channels Television. I'm Kayode Okikulu. Well, it's the day after the president's ultimatum to his ministers and other appointees seeking elective office to resign. It's a big point for discussion. I will definitely get to that. But first, let's tell you that today the president spoke on one crisis that has lingered for too long, the ASUU strike. He has again asked the Academic Staff Union of Universities to consider the plight of students and call off the ongoing 3-month strike. Yes, we'll get to that tsunami. But the strike now is the topic for discussion. He made the appeal at the 19th National Productivity Day and conferment of National Productivity Order of Merit Award on recipients. Interestingly, this particular award is supervised by one of the ministers who's been asked to resign. That's the Minister for Labour, Dr. Chris Ngige. And that's a clear indication that he has not resigned. And by the way, is also a key figure in the negotiations to find a solution, a lasting solution to the protracted ASUU strike. Well, the president also urged the students in public tertiary institutions to exercise patience as the federal government strives to address the nagging issues in the nation's university system within the ambit of available resources. Now, coincidentally, as I speak with you right now, the Chief of Staff to the President, Professor Ibrahim Gambari, and the Minister for Labour and Employment are in a meeting with the lecturers as well as all of the registered trade unions in Nigerian universities. Well, this tripartite meeting, which is being chaired by the Chief of Staff, is expected to find an end to that industrial action, in fact, series of industrial actions in our tertiary institutions by academic and non-academic staff alike. Others in attendance at that meeting are the SGF, Mr. Boss Mustafa, the Sultan of Sokoto, Alhaji Muhammad Saad Abubakar, the President of the Christian Association of Nigeria, Reverend Samson Ayokunle. Others are the President of the NLC, Comrade Ayuba Waba, the President of ASUU, of course, Professor Emmanuel Osodeke, President of, the Senior Staff Association of Nigerian Universities, SANU, NASU, amongst others. But we'll stay with that meeting and bring you, the updates, because this is a very, very important one. That ASUU strike has been on for 3 months now, and it's important to find a lasting solution. In the meantime, let's bring you another big one. Now, 24 hours after the president's directive to ministers with political ambitions in 2023 to resign by Monday, the 16th of May, the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, visited the presidential villa today. And after that, he told journalists on his way out that there is no news, but there will be news. Now, I'm quoting him word for word. But when journalists inquired to know his views about, the debate and perhaps anxiety created by his ambition, Mr. Emefiele simply responded by saying that he was having fun at the scenario. Now, according to him, he says, and I quote, "Let them have heart attack. It is good to have heart attack. I am having a lot of fun." Mr. Emefiele's visit to the State House came unannounced and was not officially on that schedule. It's been quite a busy day and lots to break down. So, you know what? Let's get right into it. And we're staying with that conversation around the president's ultimatum to members of the Federal Executive Council and other political appointees to essentially resign if they are seeking those elective positions. It was like a lightning from nowhere, really, that directive from the president. And it may have shocked a lot of people, really. But let's show you the people concerned now, the people who this particular directive is meant to affect. And on that list, we have people like the Minister of Transportation, Rotimi Amici. We have the Minister for Niger Delta Affairs, Senator Godswill Akpabio. Of course, the Minister of Labour and Employment, Dr. Chris Ngige. We have the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Mr. Timi Presilva, we have the Minister for Science, Technology and Innovation, and the list continues, but they all fall under that category. Ministers, heads of, extra ministerial departments, agencies, parastatals, as well as ambassadors and other political appointees. Well, having set that background, let's get into the conversation tonight. And we'll be speaking with our guests who will give us, the internal workings, what exactly is going on. He has written for several newspapers, rising to the position of editor-in-chief and the president of the Nigerian Guild of Editors. In 2015, he was sworn in as a senior special advisor to President Muhammadu Buhari on media and publicity. He's a journalist with more than 27 years experience, print, digital, and other media. Our guest tonight is Mr. Femi Adesina, and he joins us live in our Abuja studio. Mr. Adesina, thank you for joining us on Politics Today.
Thank you. Good evening.
Are you running for any office yourself?
Running to my house.
You're running to your house?
Yes.
Why? I mean, it's a free world. Why aren't you choosing to run?
Yes, I've chosen to run to my house after I finish serving.
So that's the running you're doing?
Yes, that's the running.
But you're a member of the APC, aren't you?
I work for an APC government. I have sympathy for APC. That's
so
what I was
are you a card-carrying member of the APC?
No.
Why aren't you a member of the APC?
I'm not a politician, actually.
Because we've seen other aides who have joined the party. In fact, they've picked forms and they're running for senatorial or House of Reps.
I'll tell you that APC is my preferred party. It's the party I like. If I didn't like the party, I wouldn't come to work for a government run by APC. APC is my preferred party, and any day the party has my best wishes. But am I a card-carrying member? No.
It's quite interesting that you're not a member of the APC, but it's good you've cleared the air, because it looks like membership of a party is a big deal now. But let's talk about that circular, which was released, yesterday, and literally everyone was copied in that circular. It's not usual to see that much people copied. In fact, the National Population Commission was copied, the EFCC was copied, the ICPC, lots of agencies. And I'd just like you to give us a peek into the mind of the president. Why did that have to happen yesterday?
Well, there's nothing as good as an idea whose time has come. The time had come for that to happen, and it's happening. You can do things prematurely, you can do things too late, but you can do things at the right time. That was the right time for it to happen.
Right. So the question then will be, why didn't it come earlier? Why yesterday? Because this debate had been on. And I know you've said time and again that the president feels the pulse of the people. He knows, what the agitations are in public. For a lot of people, this should have come weeks ago. So why did it take that long?
No. When the time for something has come, that is the time. Things can be done prematurely. And if it's done prematurely, then it's not the right time. And then if it's also done too late, it's also not the right time. But it can be done at the right and proper time. And I believe this is the right and proper time for this to be done.
Okay, so let's maybe put this in better context and put our, viewers also in the loop. So these are the people affected, some of the people affected by that circular, which was signed by the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Mr. Boss Mustafa. And there you see that list: the Minister of Transportation, the Minister of Niger Delta Affairs, the Minister of Labor and Employment, the Minister of Science, Technology, the Minister of State for Education, who, by the way, incidentally, had resigned before that directive came on. So it will seem he's leading the pack in that light. Of course, we have the Minister of Justice and Attorney General, the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, the Minister of Mines and Steel, that's the Minister of State, and the Minister for Women Affairs. So those are some of the people affected. There are reports that some others may have resigned as well, like the Minister for Niger Delta Affairs. Those reports are out there. Can you confirm that aside the Minister of State for Education, others have resigned?
Yes, I've seen those reports that Minister of Science, Technology and Innovations, Minister of Niger Delta, that they resigned. But I wouldn't know at this point, because their letters of resignation will not come direct to the president. It will go to the Secretary to the Government of the Federation.
So as it stands from where you sit, only the Minister of State for Education has resigned?
No, I wouldn't say that. I would say it is the office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation that can give you an authentic information on who has resigned and who has not yet.
But help us understand the chain of command here. So it goes to the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, and then it lands on the President's table, am I right?
Yes.
And
yes.
you have access to the President.
Oh, sure.
So
sure.
how come you don't know yet?
No, if the Secretary to the Government of the Federation has not transmitted it to the President, how would I know?
So again, as it stands, at least from what you know, only the Minister of State for Education has resigned.
I didn't say that, and I wouldn't say that. The information that is in the public domain is that 3 ministers have resigned, and it's only the office of the SGF that can confirm or deny that.
You know, the President usually is someone that, I mean, we've seen that he values his team a lot. He seems to, protect his team members, his marshals, as it were. And I would like to know, before the President gave this directive, did he maybe have a meeting with his men and women saying, well, this is the direction we're going, okay, so when we make that announcement, I don't want you to be shocked. Did any of such happen?
A meeting is holding 10 a.m. tomorrow.
No, I'm saying before.
Everybody that is exiting the cabinet is meeting with the President 10 a.m. tomorrow. So that shows you that the President values his men and women.
No, I'm saying before
if it's held before, it will be individual. It will not be group.
So a lot of them perhaps were not even aware that the President was going to give this directive.
Well, it's the prerogative of the President to do it.
I wonder, because this happened during FEC. And I mean, it was visible to the press, seeing the faces of the ministers, really. What was the atmosphere like when that announcement was made?
You see, FEC meeting had held, and we were closing. And that was when the President, now, addressed the gathering, that some were interested in running for positions. He was specific about the position of the President. He said those who had collected to run for office of President, it was advisable that they tendered their resignation. And it was in good order for those who had purchased forms to run and for government. One, those who had signified their intention to run could concentrate on their ambition. If they stayed in government and they were running their ministries and then they were also running their political campaigns, there's distraction. They can't concentrate. So it was in their interest that the President said that. It was also in the interest of government in that government's work would not suffer.
So you're saying that the President also was fully aware of the implications of holding on to an office and seeking elective office at the same time, saying that there will be conflicts of interest, as it were.
Yes, naturally. And there is also the legal angle. That is not fully determined yet, but we know that there is the danger of everything being voided later if the APC was not careful, because there is the popular section 8412
yes.
of the Electoral Act. It's not fully determined now, but then what if the highest court in the land determines it and it runs against the party, then you lose everything. So it was safer to err on the side of caution.
I mean, since we don't even know which way we'll swing, some say that 8412 is still in the Electoral Act. Some say, well, it's been struck out. But, apparently they've taken it to the Supreme Court to be decided. But let's talk about this circular now that was released. So you said, is it an advice, a directive? Is it an order which must be carried out, or it's just an advice?
Well, the good book says that the king's word is powerful. When the king speaks, there's power in it. When a president speaks, it has the force of law behind it. So it doesn't, like there's a saying that a tiger does not proclaim its tigritude. A president doesn't have to come backing and shouting, he just needs to say it. And the force of law.
So the president is ready to bite on this one?
He doesn't need to bite. I'm sure nobody will wait to be beaten over this because it is law already. It has taken effect. But there was something the president said after that meeting, when he made that pronouncement, he said anybody that needed to discuss with him on the issue, that needed further clarifications, or that has issues to raise, could come see him.
And that's why we saw the CBN governor meeting with the president today.
Maybe. Well, when the president spoke yesterday, the CBN governor was not in the category yet then. But you saw the Minister for Labor and Employment, who said he will consult with his constituents and he will consult with the president. The president left that window open.
So really, they maybe have a choice here. Because I'm looking at this circular now, and it says that Mr. President has observed and noted the expression of interest and intention by, those people concerned. Consequently, he has directed that the affected officers holding or holders aspiring to run should tender their resignation. So does it mean that all of these people who have picked their nomination forms and expression of interest forms, whether they like it or not, they have to resign? Or can they say, you know what, maybe I'm not pursuing this elective office again. Can they stay back?
Yes, we can't preempt the president. He left a window of consultation open. And when those affected utilize that window, whatever they discuss and agree to will become public knowledge.
So you're saying that there might still be some leeway for people who want to pull back and saying, I'm not running for office?
It's not unlikely, but I'm not saying it could happen. What I'm saying is that what the president said is not a decree. It's not a military decree.
Well, he said it's law.
Oh, yes, it's law. But it's not a military decree that is done with immediate effect.
Well, the circular,
you see that
actually,
he even gave a window.
The last paragraph says the contents of this circular and incidental directives takes effect immediately.
Yes, it begins to work immediately, but the terminal date is 16th May, which is Monday.
Incidentally, that day is when the result of the screening of the APC, primaries, the aspirants, that's when the result will come out. So imagine the results, let's paint a scenario. If the result comes out in the morning and maybe it doesn't favor some of the aspirants, can they then say, okay, let me go back to my home, or at least the home ground, and continue with the work?
Well, the president that can determine that. It's the president that can determine that. But I reckon that anybody who was serious to run in the first place and had paid, you don't throw away 100 million naira, do you?
But why did the president wait for them to dole out the 100 million before he said, you have to resign now?
No. There is a way you do things. There was that issue about what was the lawful thing. The Constitution says when you want to run for a public office, you quit whatever position you are holding 30 days
before the
election. And that is the subsisting thing. That's the extant thing for now. Until the court also determines what happens with Section 8412 of the Electoral Act.
But you also said that the president realized that there will be the conflict, and it's moral.
Yes, it is
well.
moral.
So, the law aside, yes, the morality was glaring. And the challenge now for a lot of people is, why wait for them to pay 100 million?
It's the proper thing to do, actually. But it is only when a man has paid that you know he's serious. It is only when he has paid that you know he's serious. There are some, if the form could be obtained without payment, a lot of people will obtain it. And at the end of the day, we say, oh, we didn't pay. So we were not actually serious.
So this was a master stroke from the president?
Oh, it is, but it's the right thing, it's the proper thing.
I think a lot of Nigerians maybe will better understand the personality of the president from some of the recent trends we have seen. But tell us, there's, concerns, or at least there's talk about maybe some ministers who are not happy with this. They feel, led on, and then at the tail end. In fact, there's a video online now that is sort of describing what may have happened. Some people getting into an arena and the door is shut and they can't leave again. So speak to that. Are all the ministers happy, or at least okay with this decision?
There is nothing like leading on in this, because it was voluntary. Nobody was coerced, nobody...
But they all met with the president, at least most of them, and they came out and said, well, the president has...
Don't be too sure. You said they all met with the president. Don't be too sure.
No, I said some of them. I changed it in some of them. But at least we saw them come out and say, well,
yes.
I've spoken with the president, I've informed him of my ambition, and he said, no problem. So that was some sort of approval from the president.
And that didn't apply to the ministers too much. Maybe the governors and some other people. Not how many ministers would you count that came out to say, I met with the president?
So they didn't seek the consent of the president?
They could have sought it. They could. I know some did. Not all of them did, but I know some did. But then the president, as the father of the nation, will wish you well. He won't say do, he won't say don't do. He'll just give you his best wishes.
Well, I know there also talks about the president anointing, perhaps, selecting one of his ministers, current ministers, as perhaps his candidates. Can you confirm that? You
recall the interview the president granted earlier this year?
That was earlier this year.
To your
Months
station.
have passed on since
Wait,
then.
let me finish. Granted it to your station, and he was asked whether he had a favorite to succeed him. He said, yes, he had someone, but I would not mention him, because if he did, mischief could happen to that person. That shows you that the president himself is interested in the process, and he has a preferred candidate. But whether he will impose his preferred candidate is what you cannot determine at this point.
Quite an intriguing period, I must tell you. But there's also the question about what happens then if those ministers resign, for example. What happens in governance? And from what we've seen, the president's first term, it took him a while to actually appoint ministers. And there are fears that if this happens again, it might take a while to appoint ministers, or it will just leave it at the hands of maybe the permanent secretaries of Minister of State. Do you think there are plans to replace those ministers?
It will be the president's decision, but then you must realize that the Constitution requires that every state of the Federation produces a minister. So the president would not like to be in breach of the Constitution. Therefore, it's not unlikely that he will fill certain positions. But then there are ministries where you have ministers and you have ministers of state. It's not unlikely that the ministers of state will continue to run those ministries. It's not unlikely that he will juggle people around. But the president will not be in breach of the Constitution.
If he doesn't appoint ministers, or if he does appoint ministers?
Yes, because the Constitution says that each state must produce a minister. And he still has a year to go. I think it's still some bit of distance.
So we can expect ministers to replace
Not unlikely. I wouldn't say definitively, but it's not unlikely.
Okay, so this has thrown up a lot of issues. I mean, the central bank governor's example is also another. It's still a bit contentious. But seeing the reply, the response he gave journalists at just right after his meeting, let me just see if I can take that quote one more time, talking about what the governor of the central bank, I see you're already smiling to that one. And this is what he's quoted to have said after he met with the president, saying, there is no news, but there will be news. He went on to say that let them have heart attack, because he was asked about, this causing anxiety. It is good to have heart attack. I am having a lot of fun. And I wonder, is the president worried about the kind of image that is casting on his government, to talk about whether or not the central bank governor is going to run for president? Civil society is coming up, the opposition also saying this is not right. Is the president aware of that?
No. It will be within the right of anybody to aspire for any position, but then do it legitimately, do it decently, do it orderly. Irrespective of the position you hold, if you want to run, then quit. And quit at the proper time. So that's what matters.
So I imagine that the president is also watching what the courts might say, because this is also within the realm of the court, asking for some sort of interpretation. Will the president hold back if the court says, well, you don't have to resign to run for office?
No, you don't have to resign before 30 days. You must resign, according to the Constitution.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So the president will then wait till that 30 days?
Of course.
That's next year, by the way.
It will be legal. But it's constitutional that you must resign before you run for certain offices.
No, before 30 days to election.
Yes.
And that's next year.
Yes, and that's next year.
Oh, I see. So the thinking is, well, if the court says he can stay, then he can stay up until 30 days before the election, which is next year.
It will be legal. Whether it will be expedient, I wouldn't say, but it will be legal.
And that's the question, because a part of the conversation is, for example, sensitive materials will be in CBN. This is someone in charge of our monetary policy.
That is the expediency part of it.
The CBN Act also says, well, if you're going to be the governor of the CBN, you should be focused on the job. You shouldn't moonlight, let me just paraphrase, as it were. So it's not just expedient. There's a legal angle to it, the CBN Act as well.
Do the right thing. Do the right thing. That is what it means. Otherwise, you are in breach of the act which legitimized your stay in office. Do the right thing.
Just to be clear, can the ministers or whoever is in the cabinet or in other agencies, can they withdraw their interest at this point?
It will be the prerogative of the president.
No. Can they, not the president, can they withdraw their interests?
Interest in running?
Yes, in running.
They already obtained the form. They already paid. That is some commitment to the process.
So it's too late to back down?
I wouldn't say. The president may look at each situation on its merit. For instance, I know that some ministers got the forms procured for them, and they expressed surprise. Okay? If they come out and say, I didn't intend to run, this was procured for me, and I didn't say yes, it could be an extenuating factor for them. But the decision is that of the president.
Interesting. But what do you think this says? We see in other climes, I mean, it's easy for people to resign. I mean, just allegations of impropriety, not even, proven sometimes. They say, you know what, I'm gone. I remember a minister of state for finance at some years back, who resigned, really. And people were wondering, this is not usual. But it's something that we could do. And I wonder, what does this say? What do you think it says about the members of the president's cabinet who seem to be holding back from resigning? Does it say anything maybe about their personality, their desire to hold on to power?
No, there's nothing sacrosanct about a position of office you are holding on appointive capacity. You are appointed. Nothing sacrosanct.
No, but you're now trying to get another job, as it were, which is elective.
Yes.
So it should be a no-brainer.
So, yeah, exactly. You should leave.
So it says a lot then about their person.
You see, something about position is that it ends. In Yoruba, we say the Egungun festival will always end. When we were kids, we enjoyed the Egungun festival, but at times it could be for a week, at times it could be for 2 weeks. But even the one for 2 weeks will end. That's the thing about position. It will always end. So if you want to hold on to it, no, you are being short-sighted. Because whether you like it or not, there's a terminal date.
Interesting. And this is the view that the president shares as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so as we talk about whether or not they will resign, there's always the question about their performance in office. And
let me add something to what I've just said.
Okay,
remember the saga of the former Minister of Finance, Kemi Adeosun, when the issue of certificate or no discharge certificate came up, and eventually she had to leave government. I recall that the president also came to the cabinet meeting and said, well, if there's anybody in such similar circumstance, that person knows what to do. So that tells you that the president expects propriety at all times.
Well, Mr. Additional, we're due for a break now. And I think we should take a breather. But when we return, aside whether or not they will resign, what it says about their personality, the whole 2023 run, is their performance in office. There's still a lot of issues that people are thinking, so you're just going to resign and leave without these issues resolved? But we'll go to break now. And when we return, we'll talk about this. Plus, we'll also take a look at what's going on in the opposition People's Democratic Party. They have given us a peek into the game plan they have for 2023. But is that the winning formula? Well, a member of the Board of Trustees joins us, Mr. Adamu Waziri. Stay with us. Our closing moments with Mr. Femi Adesina, the Senior Special Advisor to President Buhari on Media and Publicity. Thank you for staying with us. As we wind down now, it's important to talk about the performance of some of these ministers, even though some might be resigning, but there's a legacy they will leave which Nigerians will remember for years to come. And one of them is this lingering ASUU strike. Our students have been at home for 3 months now, and it looks like they will be at home for even 3 more months now that ASUU has rolled over. But then there is this window of opportunity. A meeting is holding now. The Chief of Staff is chairing that meeting, and we have all the representatives. It's called the tripartite meeting. And I'd like to know, is President Buhari ready to resolve this impasse as soon as possible?
He spoke about it today. He appealed to ASUU to consider the plight of students who had been home since. These are young people. There's a saying that the devil finds work for an idle hand. At that age, they can fall into all sorts of mischief because they are not engaged, they are not occupied. So he appealed to ASUU to consider the plight of those young ones. It shows you that the president is ready to have this matter resolved and resolved once and for all.
But is he ready to accede to the request of ASUU?
Not to accede to the request, it's a dialogue. That's why he got his chief of staff, who is a professor, who used to be a member of ASUU, to lead the tripartite meeting that was.
But we've seen a series of tripartite meetings, Mr. Adesina. If there's anything we've seen maybe more of that.
We've even seen worse.
NIREC has stepped into this.
Last week, I saw something on Facebook. Alhaji Shehu Shagari appealing to ASUU to go back to class. Alhaji Shagari ruled 43 years ago. And he was appealing to ASUU to please go back to class. So that shows you that this is an endemic issue.
So the president will do all he can to resolve this?
Everything.
And we can tell our students that they will soon go back to schools?
I wouldn't say that. Left to government, the students should go back tomorrow. But then, the issues have to be resolved and resolved conclusively. So that in another 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 6 months, we don't go back to where we are today.
We certainly hope so, because this will also be a legacy that the president will be leaving behind.
No, it will not vitiate the legacy of the president in any way, because this dates back in time. It was there under Shagari, it was there under Buhari as military, it was there under Babangida, it was there under Shunek, under everybody.
Well, it almost sounds like this is an excuse for it to continue, but we have to anchor at this point.
No.
I know a lot of Nigerians are listening. And
yes, I wouldn't say it's an excuse for it to continue. Let it be resolved and resolved right.
Well, we'd like to thank you so much, Mr. Femi Adesina, for your time tonight. And we do hope that that issue is resolved once and for all.
Everybody hopes so.
Thank you very much. Have a wonderful night.
Thank you.
Well, so that's the first leg of our conversation, but we have another leg for you in a moment. It's a very interesting one. It concerns the game plan of the opposition People's Democratic Party. But just before that, let's give you a roundup of your political stories. Here's our political roundup.
President Muhammadu Buhari is appealing to the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASUU, to consider the plight of students and call off the ongoing strike. The president made this appeal at the 19th National Productivity Day and conferment of National Productivity Order of Merit Award. He is equally urging students in public tertiary institutions to exercise patience as the federal government strives to address the issues in the nation's university system within the ambit of available resources. 382 individuals and 97 organizations have so far been presented with the award since the ceremony began in February 1991. The Nigeria Civil Society Situation Room is asking the federal government to ensure that the directive given by President Buhari for the resignation of political appointees aspiring to contest in the 2023 general elections is enforced. The convener, Nigeria Civil Society Situation Room, NLB, made the call at a press conference in Abuja on the state of the nation, where she raised concerns that the current security and economic challenges in the country could lead to voter apathy among the citizens. The Situation Room also criticizes the political appointees aspiring to contest in the elections for neglecting their responsibilities and focusing on their political ambitions to the detriment of the citizens.
It is pertinent to state that these actions have a direct negative effect on the 2023 general elections and will result in low voter turnout because young people and others making up the marginalized groups do not have a chance for nomination and others, and their state of mind due to the present situation in the country, the country have been befouled.
Governor of Kano State, Umar Ganduje, has endorsed his deputy, Nasiru Gawuna, as a governorship candidate. The governor also announced Murtala Garu, a former commissioner, as a deputy governorship candidate. Governor Ganduje, at a meeting with party stakeholders at the government house in Kano, noted that the two men will continue in the current legacy of transforming Kano State to an economically developed city.
Continuity, progressive continuity in positive development, good projects, good programs, sustainability. You need people who are insiders.
Former Senate President Bukola Saraki has been explaining why he wants to be Nigeria's next president, citing insecurity, poor health indices, unemployment, and unabated impunity in the political system, which he wants to change as some of the reasons he is contesting for the office of the president. Saraki, who spoke at a media event in Abuja, calls on Nigerians across party lines to support him and rescue Nigeria from collapse.
It is for these citizens that I want to be president, because I will do everything to protect the lives and properties of every Nigerian and everyone that lives within our country.
Chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, says the commission has concluded plans for the conduct of the forthcoming Ekiti and Osun governorship elections, as its Information and Technology Department has finished the configuration of the BVAS machines to ensure optimal performance. Professor Mahmoud stated this at a media conference in Abuja. According to him, the commission will embark on a mock accreditation of voters in Ekiti State ahead of the June 18 governorship election in this state.
The commission has finished the configuration of the BVAS for the Ekiti governorship election to further ensure optimal performance of the BVAS on election day.
The National Youth Movement of the People's Democratic Party is appealing to delegates of the national and state congresses for the forthcoming primary election of the party to vote for young people. The national president of the PDP Youth Movement at the press conference in Abia State condemned some cabinet members of President Muhammadu Buhari, including the CBN governor, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, for running for the presidential seat.
We, the PDP National Youth Movement, challenge Mr. President to prove to Nigerians that he has a little, if not none, of integrity by sacking these ministers and the governor of Central Bank with immediate effect.
Well, let's switch gears now. As at this time yesterday, the 96th NEC meeting of the People's Democratic Party was about to convene, and that was after lots of meetings and negotiations backstage. And at just about 11 p.m., the outcome of the meeting was revealed, especially as it concerns the mode of arriving at the party's flag bearer. I'll just read a section of that statement, which was read by Mr. Debo Olugwangba, the party's spokesperson, and he said that after a very extensive deliberation, NEC aligned with the recommendation of the PDP National Zoning Committee that the presidential election should now be left open. The party should also work towards consensus candidate where possible. And of course, there are issues about how the primaries will hold and all of that. But what does this mean for the PDP's presidential race? Is this throwing it open, is this the winning formula? Well, let's speak with our guest tonight. He has been a member of the People's Democratic Party's Board of Trustees for 18 years. He once contested for the position of the national chairman of the party. He was a Minister of Police Affairs under then President Goodluck Jonathan. He's had wide experience in politics. Mr. Adamu Waziri is our guest tonight. He joins us live in our Abuja studio. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Thank you for joining us. I'd just like to show how your party has journeyed up to this point. And I'd like to break this down also for our guests, the candidates that your party has had since 1999. And first, we had Olusegun Obasanjo, who's from the south. Then we had Umar Yar'Adua, the late President Yar'Adua, who ruled for 3 years. Pardon me, he was a 2007 candidate. Then, of course, former President Goodluck Jonathan, who was your 2015 candidate, and of course a 2011 election. He had, well, 5 years to rule. And then finally we had Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, the former vice president, who lost, but he was your candidate last time. And a lot of people were thinking, haven't seen the trajectory. First the south, then the north, then south, then north. It would naturally come to the south for this 2023. So tell us, why did your party throw it open and by extension jettison zoning?
Well, thank you. The fundamental reason for forming political parties is to capture power through democratic means. That's the fundamental reason. Before now, people used to go to war to get power. But now it is democracy. And the PDP espouses this principle of attaining political power. So we don't talk of trajectory. We talk of a winning team. Because we don't want to be swayed from our ultimate objective.
So it's like a case-by-case basis?
Not really. Not really. Not really. The fundamental interest of the party is to capture political power, and that is the major input in our decision-making. We are not asking for an aspirant or a candidate. We want ultimately our candidate to be the president of Nigeria. So the trajectory there is incomplete. If I will use INEC, inconclusive. Because the trajectory doesn't make much sense unless you also put the timelines. You add up the figures, both in terms of tenure and in terms of what are the voting pattern. And the voting pattern and the tenure and so many considerations for the PDP is that we need to throw our ticket open.
But why?
By that,
right,
we are getting the best.
Okay. So, I mean, you have been in the party for as long, so you understand this trajectory, as it were. So let's go back in time, because you said you're not looking at trajectory per se. You just want to get power, and this you think is the winning formula. So in 2011, for example, you had former President Goodluck Jonathan, who at least took 1 year from the term of a former president, late Musa Yar'Adua, and then he spent 4 years. But in 2015, he was unopposed, as it were. But then the interesting thing is, in 2019, your party zoned to the north. So why not continue with that trend? So you had South in 2015, zoned to the north, who was unopposed in 2015, by the way, zoned to the north in 2019. Why not then zone to the south in 2023?
Okay, your question has two parts. First, you return us to what I was saying, the timelines. We had a zoning everybody expects to last the tenure of the office that it was zoned, or the region, which would have been, without natural intervention, 8 years. The presidency would have resided in the northern part of the country for 8 years. But there was this force majeure, the intervention of death. And President Goodluck Jonathan came on board. I'm a beneficiary of his coming on board. He appointed me as a minister. And I want to disclose here that between me and him, I have had discussion with him that he is going to do one term, 2011 to 2015. And we went out with Professor Jerry Ghana and so many people to converse that the ticket that brought President Jonathan to be vice president and eventually president should be concluded, because it was a joint ticket. That is, President Jonathan should be allowed to continue the uncompleted tenure of late President Umar Yar'Adua. So we elected him to continue that.
So why was he allowed to run unopposed in 2015?
The disruption caused by President Jonathan to recontest in 2015, and the manipulation of the party guidelines, such that only one form was printed.
And interestingly, it was the same Professor Jerry Ghana that sort of made that announcement that, you know what, we have decided to just allow only President Goodluck Jonathan to run, and that was for the 2015 election. If you were doing the calculation, naturally, it shouldn't have gone to President Goodluck Jonathan as the sole candidate. It should have gone to the north.
No. Please, we are operating a presidential system of government where the buck stops on the table of the president. He is the first citizen of the country. In our case, between 2010 to 2015, the major beneficiary of that tenure was President Goodluck Jonathan. So there is a responsibility. If you have an authority, you also have a responsibility to ensure that the right thing is done. To recontest in 2015, to me, having had conversation with him is heresy.
But the party allowed him to.
Incumbency in Nigeria, incumbency. That's why we are suffering the incumbency of the current administration. We have not reached a point where the party can rise up to an incumbent president.
You know, lots of issues to raise, especially for, you know, political historians who've seen this trajectory, but more importantly for the future of our nation. We can talk about the history, but then we have a future as a nation. I know that you have spoken towards having this thing go to the north. Are you disappointed that it was thrown open?
No, I have never spoken of regionalization. Never.
So you didn't want this ticket to go to the north?
No.
Okay.
I want a Nigerian president. I want anybody aspire to be a Nigerian president. None of the candidates goes to a region other than his own and say, I am here because I belong to that region. For example, let's say Longinus, just hypothetically, an aspirant called Longinus going to Sokoto, he will not say that I am here aspiring to be president of Nigeria. Give me your votes because I belong to the Southeast. He will never do so. Neither will Atiku, who I support wholeheartedly, will go to Ibadan and say, because I am from Northeast and Adamawa State, a northerner, I want you to give me my votes. Nobody is saying so. In the comfort of their homes and on the privileged position of being in television stations, people come in and expound the thing and forget that we are a country that has been sharply divided by a maladministration that is looking for a Nigerian leader who can unite the country, who will now market himself on the basis of first saving the country before even the presidency will be useful. So I am looking for the best in the circumstances now.
You know, I came across an interview you granted last year. It was published last year, where you said, I, as an individual, will be in support that a presidential candidate must be from the north. This was an interview, so I'm quoting your words on that one. But so you seem to be saying that from now henceforth, no more zoning for the PDP. It's competence henceforth. Is that what the position is?
I have no power to say so.
So it's, again, a case-by-case basis?
I have no power to say so. I have no power. The problem when I come to interview is that you push words into my mouth.
It was a question. I didn't push words into your mouth.
Okay, listen to me. Listen to me. I am passionate about Nigeria. Very passionate. I can't live anywhere outside Nigeria for 1 month. I can't. I have never done so. So I'm looking at any point in time for the best person to lead Nigeria. I supported General Obasanjo, who I read the best president Nigeria have had since 1999. I've also worked for President Omar, a friend of mine. May he rest in peace. And worked for President Jonathan.
Right.
And supported him. Because it is unethical for him to be told to step down after 10 months or 12 months on the seat and allows
because of our time, we have just less than a minute. It's always quite interesting having this conversation with you, really, but I'd like you to speak to this in less than a minute as we wind down, because there have been agitations both within and outside your party saying this should go to the Southeast. Do you think the Southeast has a chance with this arrangement?
I am a member of the 2 zoning committees set up by the party. One to zone the party offices and one to talk about the presidency. I stand by that decision. They were all unanimous.
So the Southeast has a chance in this too?
It was all unanimous.
No, I'm saying
the best from the Southeast should compete with the best from the Southwest, with the best from the Northeast, or North, or whatever you call it. And there will be 4,500 delegates that should be given the unfettered atmosphere to choose who they think be the candidate of the party with a desire that we must save Nigeria from extinction.
And that's the goal for your party?
Yes.
Well, we have to anchor at this point, but quite an interesting topic. I would like to thank you so much. We've been speaking with Alhaji Adamu Waziri, who is a member of the People's Democratic Party's Board of Trustees. Thank you for your time tonight. Well, that's our package for tonight, but the political scene keeps getting interesting. And we'll be back tomorrow again to give you a fresh perspective. So stay with Channels Television, where you're home for the news. I'm Kayode Okikelu. To have a great night. Bye.